since we're talking about the impact of globalization and global marketplaces on the Indian aesthetic, I find it kind of telling that you both swapped seats, and maybe you will speak for each other. But I will get straight to the point. And we've been talking about this for a while because it is a concern. In a global marketplace, how do we ensure that the Indian aesthetic survives? And we'll start with you. You left this country 30 years ago?
36 years ago.
36 years ago.
I left India when I was 18 years old to go work in America in fashion, when fashion was really, yes, fashion existed and there were no schools in India. So I went to study in America, which I didn't end up studying in America. So to just give you a background how my family has been making embroideries for almost 3 generations, close to 100 years. So that's tradition. So how do you keep that tradition alive? I mean, this was my father's dream, that when I go to America, that I would still keep what's being made in India and make it relevant to the modern world. And that's where I started working for Halston. And today, what I make is modern, but still traditionally relevant, which is acceptable to people who wear my dresses around the world, from America to Japan.
So, but when we were talking, I asked you, I said, does your Indian heritage play a role in design? And you said something very interesting. You said, not my Indian heritage, but my Indianness. Do you want to sort of talk about that a little bit?
Of course. I mean, what I know in fashion is predominantly from India, because I didn't go to school. So to me, my Indianness it comes from the way I grew up. The chaos of India. And chaos, what I mean is the color chaos, the embroideries that we all love, the colors that are so, when there is no inhibition of mixing these amazing colors, which everybody in the world studies colors, but in India it just comes naturally, where you're taking turquoise and mixing it with pink or orange, and it comes naturally to us. So that's my Indianness. And that actually comes from either it be food or it be theater or all that I grew up with looking in India, the architecture. So all that affected me. So today what I design has come from my life in India.
And Sabya, you've made the sari modern, something as traditional as that. How does this play out for you, and how important do you think it is for tradition to change, to survive, or to stay the same?
Nonita, I'm not very sure if I made the sari modern, but what I've done is
I've made it relevant.
Probably made it relevant to a lot of people who were probably seeking the sari. When I look at the internet right now and what's happening to the world outside, I just see that everybody's talking the same language, wearing the same clothes, eating the same food. So we've become just one big globalized tribe. And what happens with, I look at the world as pre-internet and post-internet. And when I look at the world post-internet, I just realize that there's a collective consciousness of people that is speaking the same language. And when that happens, you automatically know by default that individualism is going to become the next big luxury. It's going to be celebrated. So we were talking about beauty the other day, and somebody said that, for women, women spend so much money for uniqueness. Like if you ask women that, you want to buy a dress, the first question that she's going to turn around and ask you is, at least in couture, is that, how many people are you making the dress for? So basically what you want to do is you want to have something that is yours and nobody else's. But then you don't understand something, that as an individual, as a human being, you're probably the only unique thing in the whole world, because you're as unique as who you are and there's nobody else quite like you. So when you start celebrating yourself, you have a point of view and you have the luxury of calling yourself unique, and you have a point of view which is your own. So when I look at a globalized world today, I think a lot of us right now are fighting for individualism, we are fighting for individual identity, and I think returning back to your roots, addressing something that's closer to who you are is going to become the order of the day. I don't think I would have made the sari popular if it was not in the collective consciousness of people to go back and discover their own roots. And it didn't happen because of me, it didn't happen because of a political propaganda. It just happened because society, when society moves a certain way, it's a very cyclic order. after some time it has to move the other way again to retain balance. So at one point of time, if globalization was the big thing, now individualism by default is becoming the next big thing.
And do you think that tradition wouldn't survive without fashion designers bringing it into the forefront? You told me, Naeem, lovely stories about growing up in your grandfather's factory, and actually the only toys you had were spools of thread. And yet you didn't want to work here. You went out, and you worked in an industry because you felt perhaps fashion needed to be the place where technology and innovation actually brought tradition alive.
So the thing is, when I grew up going with my grandfather to the factory, I mean, Sabyasachi, you know that our work of embroidery is done traditional. I mean, everything is made by hand, and the craftsmen are coming from all over the world. And my grandfather was one of those people who was a worker himself. And so I grew up seeing where a man who took his life from being a worker, pulling himself out from a little village and starting his own workshop in Mumbai, and then my father taking over. So my grandfather used to take me to the workshop. The ethic and the discipline of the workers of that time was so incredible that, the way, the timing, the stitch has to be a certain type, or the thread was a certain type. And growing around all that, playing as a little kid under the looms of the saris that were being made with reels of thread, I mean, this made me who I am. And to me, going to America was a necessity because there were no schools here. What would I do? I mean, I had to learn something different to get out of the mold from here, right? Because I wanted to go to fashion school. That was the idea, to going to FIT or Parsons. I was lucky enough, instead of going to Parsons or FIT, I ended up getting a job at Halston. To me, that was the biggest exposure, working with the most amazing designer in the world and meeting the most interesting people. So I think what exposure teaches you, the experiences that I've had and mixing America and India together makes it interesting to what I do. It's a whole different, vocabulary of fashion that I made, taking part of my heritage.
Would you agree, Sabya?
Yeah, in many ways. And you were talking about the relevance of tradition today and whether it's going to die. Well, it's our responsibility to keep tradition alive. I'll tell you the reason why. I was watching a movie called The Help, and the mother in that film tells the daughter something very telling. She says that, courage often skips a generation. But I want to say that, tradition cannot skip a generation. If Naeem doesn't keep the tradition alive, his kids won't know what tradition is, because tradition anywhere is paramparik. It's handed over generation to generation to generation. I'm not saying that tradition needs to be bound in a certain box, because tradition needs to be made relevant to times. If tradition is not dynamic, tradition is going to die its own death. But yes, we need to take tradition forward, because at the end of the day, who we are, where we come from, what we represent is reflected through our tradition. I think it's very important for our collective consciousness to keep it alive. There is a big debate about the fact that, tradition can be good or tradition can be bad. Everything has two sides to it. But I think it's important for every generation to understand, because, everything that was traditional at one point of time, in many things, many superstitions, many things that we have always had been backed by a certain kind of science. Tradition in many ways disciplined people, but there has been some good things about tradition as well. And I think if you are able to kind of pick up the good things from it, make it relevant to your times, it is going to survive.
I think what both of you have in common and what makes your work strangely modern is the fact that you actually work a lot with surface ornamentation. And your work is celebrated for it. Every review talks about your glamorous, over-the-top work. Sabyasachi's work is art in itself. Would you agree with this, that you need sort of to revive Zardozi or to work with embroidery to make actually tradition almost modern and palatable?
It's very important. See, every designer needs a story. What is my story? My story, where do I come from? Who am I? So to me, when I first started making my collection, I was kind of feeling that maybe I should give up this whole embroidery thing, right? Because I saw so much of it that I wanted a new story. The editors of the magazine said to me, Naeem, no, this is your history. And I was like 28 years old, and they were like, you need to keep your story, because this is what makes us who we are. I have kept the story going. To me, the reason why magazines talk about because it's me talking about India, where I come from, the pride that I take in what I do, but I'm just making it modern and I'm making it relevant to today's woman, either be she living in Bombay or living in New York. It's the same person. You can take Sabya's beautiful blouse and you can wear it with white jeans, and you can wear it with a scarf, and you can make it super modern. So it's, it's not just the sari. Yes, sari is important, it's traditional, it's great, but you can do a lot more, So we have to be open to the changes of today.
Well, honestly, Nonita, if you ask me, I don't even know what modern means. Because, modern for me is a state of mind. It is not a physical expression. And when I think of the millennials, we're all talking about the millennials and what are their consumption patterns. But let me tell you something. The millennials by far are far more responsible about consumption than we have ever been. And if somebody asks me what is that the millennial consumer wants, they want two things. They want connectivity. They do want to connect with themselves because they want to go back to their roots and they want to find out their own identity, for better or for worse. And also what I think what they want, apart from that, is what they want is a certain sense of individualism. Like, I remember, when I sit in one of my stores in India, and I look at a mother and a daughter. The mother, because she probably has gone through a lot of repression in her life, and she wants to find out and she wants to explore. So the mothers are the ones who come in saris and are choosing to wear gowns for the weddings, and the daughters are the ones who are coming in bomber jacket and jeans and wanting to wear a traditional sari. And I think when you grow up liberally and when you grow up with everything around you where there are no barriers, I think it's human propensity to trace back your roots and discover where you come from. And that's a wonderful thing. And let's talk about embroidery. I used to sit on the board of a national design council, where there was a big debate going on as whether we need to invent a new form of architecture to represent India, and whether we should, and it should not be the Taj Mahal, it should be a new modern architecture, because a lot of people were of the opinion that Taj Mahal is old. Now, I took offense to that, and I also said one thing, that something that has been yours for the longest time, you have spent so much time and money and effort through generations and generations and generations to uphold it as one of the most beautiful things in the world. Why would you want to disrupt that just because your own personal ego says that we want change? Sometimes change for the sake of change can be very destructive. And when you talk about embroidery, I think we come from a land of color. We come from a land of embroidery. That is who we are. And the world knows us for that. And I think it's important for you to build on that heritage and take it forward, because you see, when you represent India internationally, I think people are looking for an original point of view, and they're looking for a thought process that comes from becoming who you are. And if you move away from there, it's just bad marketing.
Yeah, see, I think you look at China. China is known for silks, right? We are known for our silks, but we're also known for embroidery, the most amazing embroidery. You look at different countries. Every country has a story in fashion. Like, what are they known for in textiles? You look at the Italians, they make amazing cashmere. They make amazing, wool and silks, makes blends. We are known for our embroidery. We can be living and promoting this embroidery in many different forms. It doesn't have to be just in the wedding things you make. It can be in many, many different forms. Embroidery will never go out of business. What was the
most outrageous thing you did with embroidery? That when you were doing it, you were thinking, oh my God, if my father or my grandfather saw this, they would kill me. If we're talking about innovation, what was the most outrageous thing you've done?
I can't hear you. What did you say?
What rules have you broken with embroidery, for example? How have you owned it?
So many different ways. For example, like last season, I took rings in metal that I hand-tied it with pieces of silk, right? And you can create the whole, it was not like no needle, no thread. It's not about, taking your traditional ways of stitching. You're using the same artisan who has an eye, who has a sensibility of putting things together, but using different materials to make art. fashion, you know, so
Is that how you would define the modern Indian aesthetic? Because we talked and talked about fashion, and then when I asked you both this question, you were like, that is the most difficult question.
Aesthetic is different from what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, you know, the art of making things, right? Aesthetic is like what you wear and how you look and all. So I just feel that what we both are doing is we are taking the same traditional methods of making things and we are modernizing it in a way that you cannot do it by machine. I think we have such a great advantage over machinery that I don't think machinery can compete with the people we have.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. You know, what's important is to have a dual perspective to everything. Like, for instance, you know, a lot of people ask us if we are a design company or we are an innovation company. And I say, no, we are not a company that innovates because we are a company that restores. For instance, when I was doing Project Banaras, there were a lot of people who were doing modern things by putting automobiles on saris and things on saris. And I used to go back to every single weaver and I used to tell them that get me your father's archive, get me your grandfather's archive. I remember I went to Banaras and I saw a beautiful brocade sari where there were dahlias. And in between every single dahlia, there was a gramophone. Now, you know, my mind raced back and my mind thought about what could have been the inspiration. So I thought that, you know, it must have been one of these poor weavers who must have gone to somebody's outhouse. And while they have probably commissioned a sari, and while he was waiting for his money to come, he must have seen a gramophone, quickly sketched it in his little notebook. And he must have been amazed at that instrument. And he wanted to put it somewhere. He couldn't fit it anywhere, so he fitted it inside a flower. And now that is exuberance of design that comes from an untutored mind. And that is something that we, you know, in modern times we can't even comprehend. And today there are enough stories from the past that have not even reached the millennial consumers. And our responsibility as a brand is to become a ferryman between the past and the present. All we do is we pick up things from the past that we think are going to be socially relevant today, and we bring it to the consumer with almost no changes. Like, so when I go to Banaras, I keep telling my design team, do not interfere. Just curate, pick up things which you think are the most beautiful things. Like, you know, when I dressed up Anushka Sharma in a sari, there was a big debate going on about the fact that why did he make her wear a red Banarasi sari, which anybody could get access to. What was designer about it? My idea was that here is India's top actress getting married to the legendary cricket captain. And you see what happens. India lives on a tripod of four things: politics, religion, cricket, and Bollywood. These are your most important subcultures that keep the country connected. And there would be no bigger power wedding ever, because it was, you know, because it's all, the last time it happened with Sharmila and Pataudi. And
you broke the internet, you do know that, with that.
You know, I think what broke the internet was not just me, I think it was accessibility. Anushka Sharma decided to get married almost with a no makeup look. You know, she didn't want to be a Bollywood star or a Bollywood actress. She went, you know, she went ahead and she was relatable. And then when Virat and Anushka had their Delhi reception, I just asked Anushka that, would you be interested in wearing a red Banarsi sari, because she wanted to wear sindoor. And she said, yes, of course, I would like to wear a red Banarsi sari. Now, a red Banarsi sari can be priced anything between 8,000 rupees to about 1 lakh, depending on the quality of zari and the type of weave that you use. So when a big actress decides to wear something that is commonly accessible to the middle class in India, that is a big fashion movement. And we did not want to do something that we designed. We just wanted to give her something that was traditional. We picked it up from a weaver in Banaras and we made her wear it. And I know that because of that movement, a lot of young girls who think that they have to spend big pockets of money to look beautiful would look at Anushka and say, hey, she's a top Bollywood actress. If she can wear an accessible sari, so can I, and I can look good. And I think that's positive change.
But the power of celebrity endorsement. The power of celebrity endorsement.
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You, Michelle
I have
Obama.
to chime in something that, you know, when I've made the dress for the First Lady, Mrs. Obama, when Indian Prime Minister state dinner. So my whole quest was, how do I make something which is America blend with the tradition of my country, right? So when I grew up, I worked with Halston. Andy Warhol used to be a part of the equation because we were all friends. And Andy taught me how to draw, and this is poppies and things like so. It came to my mind, why don't I use the concept when I was 18 years old drawing poppies with Warhol, but my own ways of making the poppies. I use the Indian traditional tiki work, which is in metal, and do the poppies all in what I learned from my grandfather, but making it in pure sterling silver. So I embroidered all the poppies in sterling silver on simple tool from a dress that was inspired by Marilyn Monroe, singing that song, Happy Birthday, Mr. President. Simple, clean shape, but traditional Indian technique mixed with Warhol. I mean, so this is how our cultures meet, where we are taking the world. I'm there in America, but to me, India comes it's an important part of my tradition. So it's everything, a lot what I do is taking what is part of India and making it modern, contemporary.
And so I think everybody here would love to know, because we've talked about fashion, we've talked about tradition. How can you be truly fashionable, but also have a unique style? This is for us. We need this tip.
Okay, I'm going to make a controversial statement that I've
made
many times over. The fashion business, for the longest time, has made billions of rupees, billions of dollars, feeding on people's insecurities. The more insecure we keep people, the more they buy clothing, because they have to measure up to something unknown to them. The difference between fashion and style is that when you're only blindly following fashion, you're in an insecure space where you do not know who you really are. And when you're stylish, you have the ability to curate things, pick up things that work for you, because you're connected to yourself. A stylish person is not a person who renounces fashion. A stylish person is a person who picks up what is relevant, irrespective of whether it's in fashion or out of fashion, and lives in it. And also a stylish person doesn't change. Because when you know that this looks the best in me, you're going to be the best person every day of your life. When I think of a stylish person in India, it could be her over-the-top makeup, it could be her red glittery lipstick, it could be her glittery gold saris, but nobody is more stylish than Rekha ji, because she wears the same sari again and again and again to every award function, because she has a sense of self-identity that I find sadly lacking in many people in the industry.
To me, one word I really don't like is trendy. Trendy is something which is, to me, classic is important. And to be something that, you can take all those important women like, Diana Vreeland, or you look at Gayatri Devi, or you look at all these amazing, icons of our different countries. What did they wear? I mean, they were like following, tradition was important. Gayatri Devi in the beautiful sari, or Diana Vreeland, so American, but a bit of Chinese, so she had kind of blended the two together. But it's, what suits you, what makes you feel comfortable, what is not trendy. You should have the ability to take something from high to low and mix it together, your own style, not to follow, even though I would love my ladies to wear Naeem Khan head to toe, but the ones who are really, really amazing, they make their own style, and those are like really cool.
I also want to add to what Naeem said, that in today's world of blur and so much clutter, you have to understand that if you really want to make an impact with your dressing, you have to understand that the only thing that creates iconism is repetition. If you look at anybody in the world who has been iconic, whether it's been Madonna with her fishnet tights and her crucifixes, whether it's been Monroe with her blonde hair and a red lipstick, whether it's been Mrs. Kennedy, Mrs. Gandhi, every single person has been iconic because they have had a very strong individual sense of self. And I want to say something here. I know I'm going to be off charter. I think one of the most beautiful, one of the most well-dressed women in this audience is actually Meera Sanyal. I love the way she wears her saris. I'm a personal fan of you, ma'am. I don't know if I would be able to have the courage to come and talk to you. But when I look at women with an individual sense of self, and the women, a lot of people have always asked me, so Sabyasachi, who's your favorite customer? I've always said that the person that I would like to dress is a person who does not care about my brand. Because when you have an individual sense of style, you don't care about a brand. You're not brand supreme, you're product supreme. So there are many women who come to me and they will look at me disdainfully and say, I like your brand, but I don't like anything from there. And I'm perfectly fine with it because I respect people for having an individual choice, and it does not have to be something that aligns with my aesthetic.
I agree.
That was, you're going to make headlines again, I have to warn you. Before we end this conversation, we're going to have a little fun at your expense. We're going to put you on the spot. Two famous designers. I'd like you to create outfits for 5 people. Right here, right now, you have to create outfits. The first person I want you to design for is Yogi Adityanath.
Oh my God.
The question should be for him.
It's for both of you.
I think he should wear white. I think we are such a great democratic, mixed cultural country that wearing white would be...
Neutral?
Neutral.
Okay, let's go back into the past just a little bit. Alauddin Khilji.
Organic clothing that's sustainable and responsibly sourced.
Well done. Rani of Jhansi.
I think sari, to me, sari is so good for her because the way she used to ride those horses, the Maharashtrian style, right? Where you can jump on a horse and it still works for you.
As a woman, I'm going to put in a request. I want a sari with pockets. Everything needs pockets, let me just tell you this.
To carry your cell phone.
Not to carry your cell phone, there are other things. Okay, this both of you have to answer. Rahul Gandhi.
Sabya?
Sequins?
I think he's perfectly well dressed. He comes from a family that's been perfectly well dressed. I think he's got a great aesthetic. I like the fact that the man actually mixes highs and lows. He wears cotton kurtas with beautiful puffer jackets, which I'm sure are internationally made. And I think what I like about his sense of style is it's relaxed, and yet it mixes the best of both worlds.
How about some fancy shoes with that stuff?
I'm sure he wears Ferragamos.
Okay, and finally, somebody who does seem to like his clothing a lot, Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
I think you should do this one.
Okay, I'll tell you something. In Calcutta Airport, there's a small little store that sells Bundy jackets like this. The name of the brand is called Namo, which translated means Narendra Modi. So obviously the man has a following. What I like about him is the fact that he understands his power, he understands his responsibility. He's a little like the French, because when you speak to the French, they hold their own by telling people that come and understand me rather than me going to you. So when he goes to Madison Square Garden, he speaks in Hindi. And I like the fact that he makes an effort to understand that a good politician is also a nattily dressed politician because you're representing your country. And as far as clothing is concerned, I think he represents his country really well.
You still haven't told me what he's going to wear.
I wouldn't want to change anything about it because I just think that he should wear a lot of more Indian shawls. But I think the man has a great sense of fashion. At least he is a great stylist and he knows how to put his things together.
I agree. He has a great sense of fashion. I think, and I like that he's putting fashion as an important part of the India.
Power dressing.
Yeah.
Power dressing,
Yeah.
the ultimate in power dressing.
Totally.
Thank you so much for this lovely session.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.